This is it. It is currently November 4th, 2022, as I'm recording this. I've been living in Japan for just over 2 months now, and today's the day I finally visit Tokyo for the first time. But first, of course, I have to actually catch my flight. Excuse the final boss music, but that pretty much sums up how I was feeling going into this trip here. It really felt like all of my previous vlogs, my previous weekend trips had been leading up to this Tokyo excursion. Since it was going to be my only one during my entire term abroad, I had to make it count. I was only going to be here for 2 days, from Friday afternoon to Sunday afternoon. Exploring all of Tokyo in 48 hours is a pretty daunting task, but I was up to it here. I had to hit the ground running, of course, at Moss Burger, down in the Tokyo Tower area. This was just the first stop off the monorail from Haneda. My plan was to make my way up north around the western edge of Tokyo. If it wasn't already obvious, I'm not going to be talking much in this vlog. I'll let future voiceover me do most of the voiceover, so enjoy. Couldn't have said it better myself. This video is going to be like 90% ad-lib commentary as I work to remember all the details of this weekend trip I took more than 6 months ago now. Next up is Shibuya Crossing, if it wasn't obvious enough from the footage. Definitely not peak time during a Friday afternoon, but still plenty of people there. Other than that, this is mostly like a shopping district, so lots of stores that I didn't really have time to go into, but of course I did have to stop at the Pokemon Center and the Nintendo store. I'm not really sure why I was expecting these places to be bigger, but they're actually both contained on the same floor of just this random mall in Shibuya. Didn't stop them from carrying a lot of stuff though. They've got like any Pokemon you can think of in plush form. Got a little sticker there. They also had a Capcom store with a Rathalos portrait, and a Shonen store with a statue of Monkey Luffy. There was a bit of a queue to get inside the Nintendo store here, but once I got in, I was greeted with a Kirby horoscope collection, which was interesting, and the only bit of Xenoblade merch I can find, some Charlotte and Ryan keychains. I did not get either, and the craziest part of all that is I actually kind of regret it now. Moving up to the top of the mall, we get a nice night view of the city as I make my way down. Going back through some of the lower floors, you see some interesting things that I didn't really spend too much time investigating. And now back on ground level in Shibuya, just walking around seeing the lights. There are lots of people around. Then, by complete chance, I came across this Spy Family themed Burger King. At the time I thought it was just a decal, but apparently there was an actual collaboration going on, and I probably should have checked it out. Heading back through the crowds towards Shibuya Station, I take the train up to Shinjuku, where my hotel is for the night. On the way I stop in at a Tower Records, which is interesting because this chain went bankrupt in the States quite a while ago. Pick up a copy of the Xenoblade 2 soundtrack, which is not something I was expecting to see. And then I stop in at Ichiran Ramen. I think this place gets a bad rap for being touristy and basic, but I thought it was pretty good. Here's some more night lights in Shinjuku. The big landmark here is, of course, Godzilla, poking his head out of the cinema up there. All right, it's around 8:45 p.m. I finally just checked into my hotel, and I can now talk to you guys without looking like an idiot on the streets in front of thousands of people. So hopefully, if my editing's any good, you've already seen a little montage of me running around Tokyo this afternoon. Maybe I'll put a map up here, but I started in Haneda, that's like south, and then I took this north, like eastward route, so up through Shibuya, which is where the Pokemon Center and Nintendo store was, and then now I'm in Shinjuku, where my hotel is, obviously. See, I actually have a plan this time, unlike all my other trips. Tomorrow I'll head east. I've got a ticket to go up the Skytree and a like unofficial fan-made like Xenoblade concert all the way over in Chiba, which should be pretty exciting. But yeah, after that, I guess I'll make my way back. And then Sunday, I plan on just heading down south through central Tokyo, on like stopping at the Imperial Palace on my way back to Haneda. That's more or less the plan. I'm gonna try and hit as many little points as I can, as quickly as I can, because I have like just over 48 hours here, not including like transit time to and from the airport. And this is the only time I'm going to be here during my entire term here. So, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, where we'll have a big day ahead of us, I guess. Yep. Day 2, we head east. I had one time constraint here. I believe my Tokyo Skytree admission was at 1 or so. So I had pretty much the whole morning to make my way over there at my own pace. So on a whim, I stopped at Ueno Park, which is kind of just like the central park of Tokyo, right? We've got a lot of museums here, a lot of shrines. It was actually kind of nice getting to see a bit of nature in this big city, even if I didn't really do much here at all. You can finally start to see some fall colors here. In all honesty, I was kind of expecting these to show up a bit earlier in the vlog series, but I guess that just didn't happen, at least not to this degree. I did travel up to Aomori the weekend before this, though, and it was very beautiful there, too. Although, the weather wasn't quite as good. I really can't believe how awesome the weather has been so far for all of these vlogs. It hasn't rained on me once, and it's the start of November now. I would have expected something to go wrong, at least at some point down the line. Continuing eastward, I'm now headed to Asakusa on my way to the Skytree. You might recognize this place from travel brochures and stuff. This is a very tourist-heavy spot to go. And for good reason. It's a very neat place to check out, at least once. You can tell I'm not the only foreigner there anymore, now that the country's opened up. Got a bit of juice from a yuzu stand along this street here. Stopped to take some pictures as well, as you do. I also went into the main shrine and grabbed a shrine stamp for my stamp book I got in the last vlog. Other than that, I think that's really about all there is to do here, other than just walk around and take it all in. I'm super glad I went. It's definitely a very cool place to check out, especially if it's not too busy when you go. Even had a monkey. How crazy is that? From here I continued on foot to the Skytree. Definitely a bit of a walk, but again, the weather's nice. My ticket to go up the Skytree is ready in like an hour, so I'm headed there now. But I gotta say, Tokyo's super cool, very high up on my list of actually good cities. Probably the biggest culture shock so far has been realizing that you can have an underground subway and it doesn't have to smell bad. Like, it just completely is just normal down there. I don't hate going underground and taking the subway. It's incredible. Walking along the river here, I was actually stopped by two Japanese girls, which isn't something that normally happens to me, so I was a little bit wary of any malicious intent going on. They could have just been trying to stop foreigners on their way over to the Skytree, like I was. So, at risk of being a little too careful, I kind of had to weasel my way out of that confrontation. Moving up the Skytree, though, you get this awesome view of Tokyo, of course. I always find that these sorts of places are worth the money just to check out. Looking out at the city, I could see some of the landmarks I had actually already been to, and if the town wasn't already easy enough to navigate, which I think it was made even easier just seeing this bird's eye view. And then I unfortunately stopped at McDonald's because I was planning on eating up there, but the line was too long for me to deal with and still have time to get over to Chiba for my Xenoblade concert. A shame that I keep ending up there, but a constant theme in this vlog series, disappointing as it may be. Alright, I just arrived in Chiba Prefecture for the Xenoblade concert. Starts in just over an hour. Admittedly, it's kind of a funny time sink when you only have 2 days in Tokyo, but it'll be worth it, I'm sure. I'm glad I got here irrationally early, because this is actually the first time I got lost in Japan. I ended up going to Narashino City Hall instead of Narashino Civic Hall, so I had to walk across town for a bit. The stroll through the suburbs was welcome, and I still made it on time, but I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a little stressful. Just came out from the Xenoblade concert. It's dark now. My video quality is now a million times worse. I hope you'll bear with me. But yeah, it was super cool. It was just an hour of Xenoblade 1 music, followed by an hour of Xenoblade 2 music. Unfortunately, as you might expect, I was unable to take any photos or videos inside the concert. But just to give you like a sense of scale, I guess, there were like up to 11 people playing on stage at once, depending on the song, and a couple hundred in the audience, with 150 more on YouTube Live. Overall, really good. They had a good sound. They had like one of every part. It was really nice. I'm glad I went. Still in Chiba, I decided to stop in at a Denny's for dinner. I got a meal set that came with dessert and free access to the drink bar. And let me tell you, those strawberry pancakes with the dessert coffee at the end of such a long day of traveling around Tokyo was probably the highlight of my entire term abroad. It was that awesome. Heading back to Shinjuku, I decided to take a stroll through the government ward. It must have been around 10 o'clock by this point, and there was just no one around. It was honestly kind of surprising how such a big city could turn into just a complete ghost town at night. At least this part of the city did. I'm sure there are busier parts of Tokyo around this time of night, but this area was just completely dead. Alright, that's a wrap on day 2, or at least the first and only full day I have here. I briefly considered stopping in Akihabara on my way back from Chiba, but by the time I finished dinner, I decided it was already getting pretty late. So I just came back to Shinjuku and walked around a bit and then ended up back at the hotel. I'll save the Akihabara visit for tomorrow morning on my way down through central Tokyo to the airport. So yeah, I'll see you then. After checking out of my hotel, I decided to get off a stop before Akihabara, just so I could walk along the main road into Tokyo's electric town. It was actually pretty cool seeing all these plain business buildings and apartments give way into lights and signs as I got closer. It was only 9 or 10 a.m. by this point on a Sunday morning, so it was actually pretty quiet relative to what it could have been. It didn't make it feel any less chaotic, though. It was definitely still a very interesting place to be. My first stop was somewhere familiar, an arcade, where I found a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Fortnite Edition. It was a little expensive to play, and I definitely wasn't very good at it, but I had heard about it before, and seeing it in person was a welcome surprise. I recommend checking this game out if you get the chance. There are a lot of playable characters. I ended up choosing Weather Report, and didn't do too horribly for my first time. Moving on, I was honestly a little overwhelmed with choices, so I ended up stopping in Don Quixote, another familiar place. Then I went into Ami Ami, one of the most popular anime figure shops in Japan. Can't say I felt super at home here. This is about the part where I started to feel kinda sick in Akihabara, just being surrounded by so much stuff. Had to do some clever camera work here to avoid the adult section. I wasn't really in the market to buy anything, but looking around, I found the Xenoblade section, which was pretty cool. What I was in the market to buy is some retro games, so I ended up finding Super Potato, one of the most popular retro game stores in Akihabara, and they had a lot of stuff here in very good condition, as you might expect. By the time I came here, I had already purchased a Japanese PlayStation 2 and Xenosaga 1 and 3, so I was really looking for Xenosaga 2 to complete the collection. Maybe I was a little too tunnel-visioned on this goal because I didn't end up finding it and left empty-handed. Next, I went to the Sega building, which had already been renamed by the time I got there. Now it's GIGO, which stands for Get Into the Gaming Oasis, which is kind of funny. It's just a normal arcade, so I didn't really bother going inside, partly because I was starting to feel nauseous, as I mentioned already. I decided it was best if I kept heading towards the station and just moved on with my day after only a couple hours in Akihabara. Definitely another very cool place to check out if you're into this kind of thing. I just don't think I was prepared for it. Continuing south, though, I was even less prepared for what I was about to see at Tokyo Station and the surrounding business district. Akihabara was great, if not a little too intense for me, to be honest. But now I'm in central Tokyo, and it's like the complete opposite. I'm just trying to find like a place to get food, and it's just like business, like big business buildings. There's nothing here. It's so bland. It's like the polar opposite. It was definitely a bit of a shock coming from one extreme to the other so quickly. I ended up having a hearty meal of spaghetti and coffee at Tully's, which was the most Japanese thing I could come up with given my options. Then I grabbed some water at a nearby konbini and walked across the street into the Japanese Imperial Gardens, where security was loose and admission was free. Both two more culture shocks for my young American mind. There wasn't a whole lot going on here, as you might expect, but that was a welcome change of pace after such a busy trip. The weather was great, as it always seems to be during these vlogs, and everything was just quiet. The area that's open to the public is actually pretty big, so there was quite a bit for me to explore here. One of the coolest parts about this whole place was actually being able to look off into the horizon and see the giant skyscrapers of the business district I was just in, looming over this little nature refuge. Finally, with just a couple hours left before my plane took off to Akita, I decided there was enough time to make one last stop. I think a long, peaceful walk through the Imperial Gardens was definitely a good way to end off such a busy trip. That being said, I'm by the Budokan right now. I think hereabouts is my last stop. I'm going to start heading towards the airport now, so I'll just go ahead and sign off now. Before setting out on this trip, I knew 2 days wouldn't be nearly enough to do all of Tokyo justice, but I still hoped that it would be enough to leave me satisfied, knowing that I probably won't come back here again during my term abroad. And I think it did. I think we hit a lot of the extreme points of Tokyo, the busy, the weird, the boring, the peaceful, all in just the last 2 days, and I'm pretty happy with that. There's still plenty of stuff I'd like to see someday in the future, but for now, I think it's best that I focus my sights on North Japan because that's where I'm studying, and that's a place that most tourists don't get to see as often. So, yeah, I think that's it for me here. Thanks for watching.